Stan Lee. He was not the owner of Marvel. He was not the one who invented the comic book genre, but yet he became the face of it. And not only the face of it, he became the face of an entire culture. The stories and characters that he helped to create in Marvel Comics helped to resonate with the audience, the public at large. These characters showed the vulnerabilities that we ourselves had, and of course made us want to read them and be part of them.
Stan Lee, writer, editor, publisher, he was the ambassador of the Marvel comic world, and we are all that much better for it. See, I think a lot of people may not realize with the Marvel Comics is one of the reasons why they took off and hit that they did is they tapped into a new audience that comic books weren't getting at the time. Now, the Marvel Comics, however, were tacking older. They were tacking from about 12, almost say to 18. And they were very contentious. The Fantastic Four is a family, and they're always bickering, which was something you could definitely, put your hands on. And then you go further, we have the Marvel Comics, let's say Iron Man, which are tapping into the Korean War or the Vietnam War once we get to Rhodey. And so these made them very, very attractive for readers who were older. By older, I mean 12 years old isn't significantly older, but 12, to 18, and then a lot of these guys still remembered them and they kept reading during college as Spider-Man was kind of growing up with you up to a certain extent. Now, Marvel gets prominent enough in the future, sometime in the 70s, where with Fireside Publications, they're able to make trade paperbacks. And these trade paperbacks primarily are reprints of materials that had been published earlier.
Being kids, like the origin of Marvel Comics is something that my parents read for me and my brother all the time. And then when we were, teens and we were reading comic books, we decided to go back to the old Marvel and not just to see how they held up. The fact that some of those things, when we weren't reading on our own, now seemed like a higher quality of work that came out of this process of Stan being the one guy in production. So I think and that's what he said in Origin of Marvel Comics and Son of Origin.
The origin stories were also with an origin of the origin story. There was this great typed page, and it felt like it was fresh off the presses from Stan Lee's typewriter. Detailed the origin of that particular character, as much as Stan Lee himself could actually speak to it, which made for a very full reading. Of those original trade paperbacks with the origin stories, Origin and Son of Origin. Marvel Method is something that is it's born out of necessity, as Stan Lee needs to be able to get this stuff done in a certain amount of time, and writing full scripts is going to be really hard for him with all the other middle management responsibilities he would have. But in the same breath, hey, look at the results that we got from, what was really something that was born out of necessity. So it was important for him not just to write and come up with these ideas, but he was also looking to push these books. When you look and you see something like Iron Man, and Iron Man first comes out and he's in a gray uniform. A lot of guys think that was just for one issue. No, he was gray for a little bit. And then he changes to the golden armor and so on and so forth. Well, the changes those are the editorial decisions coming from Stan Lee. He's looking at the numbers and saying, well, look, what can we do to improve these numbers on this? Well, let's give him a new suit. Let's try a different color. Let's do this. And then once it clicks, that's when we see, okay, the changes stop. That's when the numbers are where they're supposed to be. So when we get to that classic Iron Man armor, that's where it is. Okay, fine, we've got it now. This is exactly where it should be. And there'd be some tweaks here and there, but it lasts as long as it did because the numbers were exactly where they needed to be. Now, again, Stan Lee was working with some of these, and again, only time would show how great they were, but Stan Lee was working with Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby. There's some heavyweights at the end of the day, so I couldn't imagine these guys not being able to turn it out, but it was also something that where they had Stan Lee, where, it was a mutual thing, and this whole convergence of ideas was supposed to happen. Now, because of this, Stan Lee was the prime guy to come and do this lecture circuit that a lot of people, I don't know, are familiar with today, but he was going to colleges like Muhammad Ali, and Stan, while not Muhammad Ali, still, fit into that mold of bringing something to the masses and being the, not the gatekeeper, but definitely the doorman who opened up the door and said, hey, look, come on, welcome in, explaining Marvel Comics as these archetypes. And they're told through these particular characters. And Stan was very, very personable. It just really came across that he really enjoyed what he was writing and what he was doing. And he becomes the face, the face, the heart, the blood of Marvel Comics for so many people. And this also is very needed, because later on, where Marvel's about to change hands and about to be sold, but part of the agreement on the deal was that if they were going to buy Marvel, Stan had to stay in place, and they wanted his name, Stan Lee Presents, because Stan had become so synonymous with Marvel Comics and the Merry Marvel Marching Society and the lecture circuits, but really treating this to a manner, with the gravitas that hadn't been done before with comics. It's the same thing that we see in the films, even through those cameos. It's that link.
Our friend here was involved, according to Box Office Mojo, in $16 billion. Movies that he was involved with grossed over $16 billion. I don't think anyone else can claim the same thing. No one else can claim to be the cameo in as many cameos as he has. I mean, he was the face of the MCU. Basically, he was the face of every Marvel comic. If there was a Marvel comic that was turned into a movie or a TV show or even animated, he was there. And that was tremendous, because when you saw his face there, that was a seal of approval that this was a Marvel comic. For all intents and purposes, he was the good housekeeping seal of comic.
Stan Lee's a character in and of himself, which I'm glad he was immortalized in many of the movies. And now we'll know what we missed the first time, since we don't have him. When we see him these times, as in the cameo scenes, they'll give him that honorary Oscar. And hopefully he'll be present in when they do the Oscars, they'll put his face up, because that would be the ultimate thing for us comic fans to see, one of the guys that, we felt knew us and was talking to us up there and recognized by Hollywood.
That's how important he was to comics. So he was an incredible, important figure in the culture that we currently live in.
Stan Lee was a guy who didn't even go by his real name, because he didn't think the field that he was working in was a worthwhile field, and he wanted to save his name for something that would be these great landmarks of literature. Lo and behold, he gives us these great landmarks of literature. So, that part of you that you may be a little shy about or even embarrassed about, it's okay. It's cool. Just do your best with it, and everybody's going to come right along with it. Excelsior.